Hello, and welcome to episode 132 of the Book Binge, where we're doing another reading wrap up and TBR video covering what I read last month and what I plan to read this month. January wasn't nearly so ambitious as December was for my reading, and that's perfectly fine because December was arguably a little bit over the top. And I kind of needed a little bit more of a relaxed reading month because this next month has a lot more planned than I actually initially anticipated before like last week. So we'll see how things go. It was nice to get back to reading one book at a time in January. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to keep that trend going in February. But let's talk about what I read last month, starting off with an immersion read of Cormac McCarthy's All the Pretty Horses, a book that I thought was fine. It was definitely a lot better than The Road. There was a lot more moments in this that I think stood out as being fairly enjoyable or at least readable, whereas The Road had like two or three decently memorable scenes and the rest of it I did not really enjoy that much. This one had a lot more that was like, yeah, I can see the appeal, but it also felt a little bit boring and overlong at times, and certain aspects, certain characters I didn't really love, and certain instances where if a certain character wasn't on the page, I didn't really enjoy what I was reading. Uh, I was generally a lot mixed on All the Pretty Horses, so I have a. It's. I'm really not sure where I'm going with McCarthy at this point. When it comes down to it, I know I have one hit. That was No Country for Old Men. That book was really good. I have one miss, which was the book that shall not be named, even though I've named it multiple times in this video already. And then I have this, which is kind of right in the middle. I'm not sure whether I would say I liked it or not. I'm so close to being in the middle that I think I'm just going to say not. Like, I'm mixed to negative on this more than I think I am mixed to positive, which is weird because I think I have less, like, inherent problems with this book than I have, like, inherent things that I enjoyed, if that makes sense. Either way, it was a book that I'm a little bit more mixed on in comparison to the next couple books that I read. The first being The E-Arc for Disquiet Gods by Christopher Rocchio. So this book doesn't actually come out until April 2nd, I believe, of this year, but on Bane's website you can go and buy the E-Arc for $15. If you're a fan of Rocchio and the series, there's no reason why you shouldn't do that anyway, because it's actually the best way to support him with reading the books. He gets more of a cut from these E-Arc purchases than he does from hardcovers, for example. So that would be really worth doing. Disquiet Gods is an insane book. It goes bonkers in places, does some really weird and unexpected things throughout the entirety of it. There's a lot of scenes in here that are just so mind-blowing in ways that I never anticipated happening. Rocchio, once again, knows how to completely do something different than what the reader is expecting, and do so in like the most satisfying way possible. I did write a 14 or 1500 word review of this on Goodreads, so I recommend you check that out if you want my detailed thoughts on it. Still spoiler free, but if you want to know like everything that I thought about the book, it's all there. Because I don't think I can really summarize how I felt about this book without just going into spoilers for the most part, at least at this point. Either way, I also read The Mark of Athena this month, which I actually started very early in the month. I think like right after I finished All the Pretty Horses, and I only got what, like 40% or something like that of the way through before the Disquiet Gods E-Arc came out. I planned on finishing this beforehand, but that E-Arc released a couple days earlier than expected, so that didn't happen. So I just finished this a few days ago. Like I said in the Fortnight on the Isle that came out a couple days ago, I remember this one being one of my two favorites of this series, The Heroes of Olympus. I'm not sure how I feel about it now because it mostly just felt like whiplash following McCarthy and Rocchio and Chase and a bunch of these other authors that I've read over the last almost year, like the last 9 months of reading since when I read The Son of Neptune. Going from everything that I've been reading to this felt like whiplash, so I'm not sure how I feel about it right now. I still enjoyed it, of course, but there are aspects to it that it's just like, I don't remember it feeling like that when I read the first two books, so we'll see how I feel about The House of Hades later this year. Otherwise, I did also read my first couple short stories to be able to cover on Short Story Sundays, a new series that I started for the channel. So I read Metzengerstein by Edgar Allan Poe and The Beast in the Cave by H.P. Lovecraft last month. So that's what I did there, and I plan to continue reading short stories from these two and from some other authors over the basically for as long as I do this channel while I'm doing Short Story Sundays and stuff like that. As for the book of the month, it was Disquiet Gods. It's pretty easy choice there. I'm pretty sure everybody else who read the book would agree that it is their book of the month for January, and a lot of them also say it's likely going to be book of the month for or book of the year for 2024, because for something to top it, it's got to be pretty crazy. So that's kind of what things look like right now. As for this month's reads, like I said, February looks a little bit more chaotic than I think I want it to, but let's just go ahead and talk about some of the things I plan to get into. Starting off with The Crossing, the second book of the Border Trilogy by Cormac McCarthy. I have a little bit higher hopes for this than I think I did for All the Pretty Horses. I'm not sure why. I think just sort of the concept of this and sort of what I know about the trilogy as a whole has me a little bit more excited to get into this. If I don't enjoy this book, I have a very bad feeling that I'm not going to enjoy the third book at all. So I've got high hopes for it. It's one of McCarthy's longest books. I think it's his second longest book, so that's maybe a bad thing, because I think when he's spending less time just spilling words onto the page in the way that he is capable of doing, we'll say, because I'm not a fan of his prose, this could go either way, all things considered. So I'm looking forward to it, but I'm still very tentatively looking forward to it in that way. The next book that I want to read this month, that I had planned originally for January, but obviously wasn't going to have time for, and that now I think I'm not going to have time for this month, but I'm probably at least going to start anyway, is East of Eden by John Steinbeck, one of my most anticipated reads of the year and this decade, just generally. I don't know why I'm so excited to read this book, but I am. Hence why I'm probably still going to start it this month, even though I probably shouldn't, because it's quite lengthy. It's like 600 pages, and I don't know if I have time to do that, but I'm going to try to do it anyway. Besides all of those, the next book that I'm going to be reading this month, and that I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get all the way through, I cannot figure out how to get this cover. I guess I'll just show it in this grid here, because that's the only way I can figure out how to. It's the red cover book right here, Murderous Fairies by Nicole Brona's second book of Midnight Detective Agency. That's another arc that was just sent to me, and given that it's a heck of a lot shorter than some of these other books, especially like Disquiet Gods, I was comparing it. Like Disquiet Gods was 1,050 pages at the Kindle settings that I had it on. This book is like 170, so I'm pretty sure I can get through it in just a few days. That's an e-arc that I plan to read this month. Might have to wait until March if I don't have time, but I'm going to try to get to it as early as I possibly can for Nicole. The next reading project that I have for this month, it really depends on whether it's going to happen this month or not. It depends on when I get it. It's a secret reading project, so we'll talk about more about that when I'm able to talk about it, but know that there is another book here in my TBR that I'm not explicitly mentioning. Otherwise, the other book that I'm going to try to fit in is The Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon, a book that I did not originally have in my TBR, but turns out is the monthly classics reading for a group of my friends. And since it's so tiny, it's only like 6 hours in an audiobook. It's only 150 pages here, and the audiobook is part of Audible's Plus catalog, so probably going to do something immersive with this just to get through it really quick. I guess I'm just going to throw it in. We'll see how I feel about this being my first Pynchon. I guess a couple of my other friends had that be their first Pynchon read, and it worked out being a little bit better than, say, maybe Gravity's Rainbow being the first Pynchon. So we'll see how this all goes. Otherwise, my other reading plans, primarily for this weekend, are to get through another couple short stories here. I'm going to read The Duc de l'Omelette by Edgar Allan Poe, so I can do a Short Story Sundays video on that next week, or this Sunday, rather, I suppose I should say. And then The Alchemist by H.P. Lovecraft for a couple weeks after that. So those are going to be my short story reads for this month. In fact, maybe I should see what days those come out on. And then I'm going to need to read probably 3 short stories in March, it looks like. But those are going to be the 2 that I read this month. I'm not sure how or when I'm going to fit in some other authors. I'm kind of looking into that right now. But for right now, Poe and Lovecraft are kind of fitting the bill. Some other things that I want to get to if I have time, but I'm pretty sure I'm not because of all this other stuff that I already have planned. Like, looking at it, it's actually quite a lot. I want to continue Anna Karenina because I'm still only up to part 4 on that. I was going to try to get through part 4 this month because I think I might have gotten through part 3 of that this in January. Not entirely sure. I wanted to be through part 4 by the end of January, but that didn't happen. I was doing some other things over the month that made it so that I wasn't able to do that. I hope to get through more of that this month. We'll see whether I'm able to or not, given some of these other reads. Again, I want to try to get through Forced Perspectives by Tim Powers. That's not really a priority, but if I have time to just audio something, I might do that, given The Crossing and Crying of Lot 49, and especially if I continue on to Karenina, it's probably not going to happen, but it's on the list. And then another book that I want to read soonish, and that I was originally, tentatively putting on my list for this month, was Chess Story by Stefan Zweig, which I'm sure I absolutely butchered his name. I apologize, but it's the book in the top right over there that a few of my friends read recently in January and were raving about, and it's really short, so I might try to fit that in if I can. You also probably saw the other book in this collection that I have, and it's one of the Rick Riordan short stories, joining together the Percy Jackson side of his universe and the Kane Chronicles side of his universe. I don't actually own that first story there, but it's on Prime Reading, so I'm going to read it there because I actually have the next couple of them through these books. The second book in that short story series is in here, and then the third one is in the House of Hades, so I might get through those sometime this year as well, just because I can. But I've talked about a lot of things that I'm probably not actually going to read this month, so we'll see how the month goes. Check back in at the beginning of March if you want to see how much of this I actually get through. Who knows? It's probably not even going to be that much. But thank you guys for watching this if you did. Continuing to avoid epic fantasy for a little while apparently, but it'll be okay. I'll get to some of that next month with some other very big books. Everything's just going crazy right now. Either way, thank you guys, like I said, for watching. I'll be back on Thursday with a top 10 video, I believe. That will be my top 10 classics that I most want to read. So that was a fun video to work on and kind of plan, because that'll be a series of like 3 or 4 different videos over this year maybe. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you guys once again for watching. I'll be back in that next video, and I hope you stick around for it.